Yangon is the capital of the Yangon region and the largest city of Myanmar. Yangon served as the capital of Myanmar until 2006 when the military government relocated the administrative functions to the purpose-built capital city of Naypyidaw in north-central Myanmar. With over 7 million people, Yangon is Myanmar's most populous city and its most important commercial center. Yangon boasts the largest number of colonial-era buildings in Southeast Asia and has a unique colonial-era urban core that is remarkably intact. The colonial-era commercial core is centered around the Seoul Pagoda, which is reputed to be over 2,000 years old. The city is also home to the gilded Shwedagon Pagoda, Myanmar's most sacred and famous Buddhist pagoda. Yangon suffers from deeply inadequate infrastructure, especially compared to other major cities in Southeast Asia, such as Jakarta, Bangkok, or Hanoi. Though many historic residential and commercial buildings have been renovated throughout central Yangon, most satellite towns that ring the city continue to be profoundly impoverished and lack basic infrastructure. A woman named Melinda Thin was born in 1993 and is a graduate of the University of Economics. Born into a small family. But Melinda's life is all round. She is also very spoiled but highly disciplined. Many judge her as a classy girl. By the way, after finishing college in 2016, Melinda had become an admin at a cotton company. Finally, a year later she became an admin staff at Yangon City Bank and worked there for a long time. Melinda has many acquaintances. Many say this woman loves to party. She likes to be the center of attention, especially from the boys around her, and even with her professional friends. She often goes out to clubbing, drink, and hang out not only on weekends, but also on weekdays. Melinda is very beautiful. Many men pursued her. Even some immediately declared love the first time they met. She is indeed adorable, friendly, easy to mingle with friends, and not arrogant. That's why men like to misunderstand the welcome nature of these women. When invited to approach, it turns out to be just considered an ordinary friend. But that doesn't mean all men are rejected. He was once close to a man named Dolly the Two who was a priority customer at his workplace. But it turns out that Dolly is the type of man who likes to test girls who might be because he has a lot of money and feels sure that the women who come are just after the money. In 2018, they dated for several months. Very often, this man said he wanted to transfer money to Melinda for shopping, which she never refused. Until this man ghosted Melinda, disappeared without news, contacted could not, visited to his house always said no one. The number is also blocked. But Dolly told a close friend of the girl named Ellie that he was looking for a good wife figure and not a material girl. According to him, 3 months of dating Melinda, only money and shopping continue to be the subject of their conversation. Plans to get married in Paris, honeymoon to 6 countries, and mention a large number for his dowry later. Dolly often talked about her mother suffering from breast cancer, but Melinda never took the topic seriously, never asked how Dolly's mom was doing, never even visited her mother at the hospital when she was being treated, always changed the subject about their marriage plans, didn't care about the man's family at all. So Ellie told Melinda that Dolly wanted to break up. After Ellie told Melinda all this, the girl was furious and angry. She's not a material girl. But if Dolly is so diligent in transferring money and buying this and that, can she refuse? He might get offended if she doesn't appreciate it. While the reason she doesn't want to talk about the topic of her mother's illness is so that Dolly can ease her mind a little. Sad to see her mother. Melinda is trying to provide entertainment by talking about fun topics so that the man doesn't get lost in his sadness. At work thinking about work, at home thinking about mom. That's why the woman finally decided to go to Dolly's office. She doesn't like being called a material girl. Raged at the man who was considered not gentle, using all the disappearances and breaking the relationship through his friend. Until Melinda said she would return all that Dolly had given her so far. Cowardly but demanding guy. You are the one who gives this and that, but you badmouth me everywhere. There are actually a lot of rich men who are chasing me and promising a lot of money. So don't feel like you're the richest to the point of demeaning women. Actually, after this incident, there were rumors about Melinda, who said she wanted to be with men for the sake of money. Until the end of 2019, she was familiar with a man introduced by her boss named Jonan Lang. This man works for the NPI paper company. Even his father Kiao Lang has shares in the company. His father also has a car accessories business and retreading heavy vehicle tires. Although Mr. Kia is widowed, his life is quite happy because his nephews can work together, including his son Joe, who is diligent and reliable. The relationship between Joe and Melinda is said to be getting closer. It seems that the man really likes the personality of this woman, who is humble and connected when invited to chat. In January 2020, after a month of acquaintance, even invited to travel to Bali, Bangkok, and Tokyo. They were legally dating at that time. The plan was to get married in mid-2020, but then it was postponed because the pandemic attacked. Even though the families of the two parties have met several times and mutually agreed with their relationship. According to Ellie's information, at the end of 2020 several times Melinda was desperate to hang out with friends at the Fuse Club in Myanmar Plaza. Even though the prohibition on crowding was still in effect at that time. But the party spirit is already raging and addicted. Especially after a few months of lockdown at home, it must be really bored. But according to rumors, Melinda still likes to date some men, while her status is already Joe's fiancé. She was asked once by Ellie, but she just answered that she really wanted to enjoy freedom before being constrained by her marriage. At the end of the single period, you can enjoy all the things that will be impossible to do again if you already have a husband. Until finally, when the condition recovered a little but was still on standby status, Melinda and Joe had a semi-closed wedding. Only close family and a handful of acquaintances were invited because it was still a pandemic. The happiness of the two was very clear, especially the woman who was presented with a house and a new car from her father-in-law. Officially became husband and wife in February 2021, when Melinda was 28 and her husband was 32 years old. After that, the woman really resigned from work and became a housewife. However, most of her time is still used to go home to accompany her mother. Moreover, Joe sometimes likes to go out of town to help his father's vulcanizing business. The couple also postponed their honeymoon period because there was still a flight ban at that time. The intention was to go to Europe later but was held back first. In their big house, they lived with a household assistant named Hila Fio, who was 40 years old. Not too much work for the woman just cleaning the house, because for food problems Melinda prefers to order online. But since July 2021, Joe has had more and more business out of town. His wife felt it was a waste to hire Hila there. It only adds to expenses. Don't cook anyway, right? If the problem of washing clothes can go to the laundry while cleaning the house, is better to call an online cleaning service every 3 days. Using a promo code can get a discount too. Actually, Joe thinks it's okay. For example, if Hila works there, let his wife have a friend to take care of her. But Melinda still refused that she needed to be economical. A lot of money does not mean you have to be extravagant, even demonizing the household assistant. Like bringing men to her room. This is what later became the husband's approval. Hila was dismissed by Melinda. Actually, Hila was sad. After the pandemic, her husband is still unemployed. Children need to be fed. But Melinda said it was her business. Every human being has their own problems. In early August 2021, one of the neighbors who also worked as a driver for Mr. Kian named Mayat and his wife Lon Nandar told Joe that in the last 1 to 2 weeks when he was out of town on business, Melinda was often seen receiving male guests whom they did not know. Maybe if it comes during the day it is still quite reasonable, but if it's midnight until dawn it feels something odd. This was immediately confronted by Joe to his wife, especially since he had also found a wallet on the front sofa that didn't belong to him. But because there was no ID card in it, Melinda argued that it belonged to her brother, who had left it behind when he stopped by this afternoon. That's why Joe didn't want to ask any more questions. But this time, who was the man who came to visit in the middle of the night? Melinda angrily said that it was only her brother who came. But how come the neighbors don't know him? Do they even know who my family members are? I've only been here for 6 months. Until then, Melinda also diverted the conversation about her pregnancy, which was already more than 3 months old, and immediately wanted to be invited to Europe because their honeymoon had not yet been realized. But Joe said, work is still piling up. Just wait for the end of the year so you can celebrate the new year abroad. The next day, Melinda went to the Thandar family's house, who were considered to have tried to poison her husband's mind about his male guests. The woman went berserk and pointed at Mayat. No need to be a hero. There was even almost a fight with Lon because she didn't accept her husband being insulted like that. A few days later, in the middle of the night, the Vandar family's house was thrown stones and Molotovs while they were sound asleep. This made them feel uncomfortable and threatened until they moved temporarily to their parents' house not far away for the safety of their children. It was reported to the police, but there was never any action. On Tuesday, August 10, 2021, at 3 p.m., Melinda was shocked when suddenly her husband appeared at home after 4 days of not coming home due to business out of town. He said he was out of town for a week, but suddenly he was back when she was with a man known as Coco, who was actually the woman's date. They were chatting in the living room when they were caught. Joe had asked her, "Why was there a man in their house? Why did you close the door?" But Melinda only replied that it was a friend from work who stopped by for a while. Closed the door because the road dust is thick and the air outside is hot. She was turned on the air conditioner, so it was impossible to open the door. This was still understood by her husband until Coco said goodbye. But in reality, Joe had installed small CCTV cameras in the corners of his living room and bedroom without Melinda's knowledge. That night, when his wife was sleeping, he checked the video footage and his heart burned when he found out that in the last 4 days, his wife had received 7 male guests in 9 meetings. Coco was counted 3 times coming, and all of them were there during the day and night, which was not just sitting, but hugging, kissing, and even making love in the bedroom, front sofa, on the dining table, even most likely also in the bathroom, because it was seen that Melinda entered there with one of the men. While looking at the CCTV footage, Melinda woke up and was shocked when she also looked at her husband's laptop screen. In fact, she was angry first because she felt that Joe had set her up by putting surveillance cameras in the house. A violent argument ensued, leading to a physical fight in which the man banged his wife's head against the wall until she became unconscious. Feeling panicked because Melinda was not moving, Joe was upset and his mind was too short to hide his wife's lifeless body. Until then, he was desperate to take a saw from the back warehouse and separate Melinda's body into 13 parts. After that, he called Myatt to help him dispose of the results of his actions. But it seems that Myatt was shocked. Didn't approve of Joe's actions. For 2 hours they sat and were given advice and strength so that the man would surrender to the police. Because everything sooner or later will be revealed too. Before dawn on Wednesday, August 11, 2021, Joe finally surrendered himself to the authorities. The police went to Joe's residence and found his lifeless wife. Melinda's family was quite shocked and angry at the man who was considered cruel for killing his wife in a pregnant state. Also expressed by the father Kia, who was really surprised by his son's behavior. Until then, Myatt and Lon testified about the issue of Melinda's infidelity, and the examination of the CCTV regarding the wife's behavior was announced. All in shock didn't expect Melinda to be that dirty. That's why she forced Hila to be fired so she could have time to bring in more men. The court tried to bring in the men in the CCTV footage to be witnesses. Many objected and disappeared. The only one who showed up was Coco, who was caught red-handed at Joe's house. Coco admitted that he and Melinda had been dating before she got married. She said she would leave Joe if the baby was born. She wanted to transfer some of the money from her husband's account to her account and was ready to marry Coco. This is reinforced by the chat history between the two of them. It was even discovered that Coco was the one who had thrown stones and Molotovs at Myatt's house on Melinda's orders. But the young man in court actually cried after learning that Melinda not only promised marriage to him, but to several other men as well. Melinda's best friend Ellie also testified in court that her friend confided in her that the reason she married Joe was for wealth. She already got a house and car from her in-laws. Her next target is money and one more house, and then she will ask for divorce. Ellie tried to advise her, but no one could oppose Melinda. She was completely blinded by wealth, and even said that it was a shame that such a beautiful woman got an ugly man like Joe. While Joe claimed to believe 100% in Myatt and Lon's testimony when they complained about his wife's unfaithfulness. He had wanted to install the CCTV since yesterday, but there were obstacles. Until when Melinda went home to her parents' house one day, the camera was installed in a hidden place, which finally succeeded in exposing the wife's bad behavior. Until the decision on Tuesday, March 22, 2022, the judge at the Yangon Regional High Court found Joe guilty of the first-degree charge of killing his wife and deliberately dismembered Melinda's body and the baby in her womb. Joe was sentenced to life imprisonment and can be released on bail after serving at least 25 years. Meanwhile, Coco also received sentences for misconduct and conspiring to make threats against Myatt and his family. He was sentenced to 11 months in prison. Actually, Melinda's family was angry and upset. They wanted Joe to receive the death penalty. But the judge told the mother and father to watch the CCTV. Melinda did despicable things with many men. It could be that Joe is not the biological father. If you like the video, please support my channel by giving it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, there are a lot of interesting things ahead of you.